right, guys, we did it. We're here. We're gonna let everybody start to pile in. Give me a whoop whoop if you can hear me. Give me a whoop whoop. Oh, there it is. The raising of the roof. Okay, what's up, guys? I'm Adam Dorsey, and I'm your chat moderator for this evening for a giant welcome to WeDeepen's Mind Sports. This is the epic one that we've all been waiting for, opening versus closing, our lockdown special. The nuances with which we'll get into. I just wanted to be the first one to welcome you guys into the space. This is, in fact, an interactive space, and I am servicing you wonderful human beings as the chat moderator tonight. And so what that means is, in front of me, I have this thing. It's a laptop. See that? It's a laptop. And on that laptop, I will be moderating the chat. So we encourage our folks that are involved today watching to get involved in the discussion. This is an opportunity for all of us to come together and to find opposite ends of the spectrum and hopefully meet in the middle to raise some good ideas and to maybe absolutely learn something in this crazy turbulent times. As we go into this lockdown episode, I know that this can kind of trigger some stuff. It's a tough time. I mean, my girlfriend got so good at social distancing that she doesn't even return my phone calls anymore. All right, that's a joke. That's a joke. That's a joke. No. It's actually, the quarantine's been good for me. I've completed 5 books, which is a lot of coloring for me. A lot of coloring. So I start with some dumb jokes for you guys because, look, I think what we want to bring into this space is some levity. Indy and I are here to service you guys to make sure that we're having this conversation, but also at the same time that we're having a good time doing it. You know, when we're happy, when we're elevated, we're paying attention more, actually, and we're able to soak more in. So I encourage those of you who are not on the actual panel to do 2 things. Listen, but also engage. You know, if you're actively listening in this space, the more you're involved, the better the discussion will be, right? So can I get a little All right. So that being said, we're doing a couple different formats today where we might be breaking out into some smaller groups later on into some breakout spaces. We'll take that as it comes. So if there are any sort of technical difficulties, it's experimental for us. So please bear with us. You have the right to bear arms. Okay. So that being said, I love you guys very much. Let's get it over to the man, the myth, the legend. I've gotten lost both in his beard and in his delightful eyes many a times. He is the prize to my carnival games. He is the gift to my Christmas tree. He's the leaves to my tree. I love him to death. Indy Rishi Singh.
What's up, dude? What's up, everybody? What's going on? Are you guys ready to argue and debate and get mad at each other and throw things at each other? Woo! That's why we're here. This is the WWF of your consciousness. How does that, right? You guys ready to bring it? Okay. But in all seriousness, you know, we create this space, this wonderful space, you know, Adam and I, and you know, thank you for Christina and the whole team at WeDeepen. I mean, there is a whole team behind this. So thank you for all the people that are helping make this possible. But really, this thing, Mind Sports, you know, like, hey, what if we came together in some sort of like sportsmanship, but we also talk about things that are on our minds, right? And there are these things when they're on our minds and we don't talk about them, in my opinion, it becomes mental disease, right? Mental illness. So it's just a wonderful time, especially right now. Adam, wait, isn't there some crazy stuff going on right now?
Oh, what are you talking about? How LA won the NBA Finals? Is that what you're talking about?
No. I was talking about Tom Brady made the playoffs.
Tom Brady.
Without the Patriots. Without the Patriots. Like, he's not a Patriot anymore. He's a Buccaneer. He's a Buccaneer. He's not even a Patriot.
It's crazy. He's got Gronk, though. So
aren't Buccaneers pirates, though? Like, isn't that?
They are.
All right, hold on. What's going on here?
No, hey, what's Indy? What's a pirate's favorite letter?
S. No wait. T. No wait. R.
Yeah, R. Well, you think it would be R, but it's actually the C.
That was a good one.
It's the almighty C.
The almighty C. Arr, arr.
I think what you're referring to, Indy, is in Washington, D.C. Is that what you might be referring to right now?
Yeah, I mean, certainly there's something funny going on with in many different spaces. Because I mean, DCs are something about. I'm Sikh. I come from a family of farmers, and there's farmers all across the world protesting that as well. The largest protest is happening in the world in India, a peaceful protest, and that's not being talked about at all, which is interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting. What do you think that's all about?
I don't know. It's kind of funny, right?
That might be a different episode, brother.
Well, I mean, but that's kind of like why we create this space, really like, let's have this conversation. Who knows who will benefit from this? And we have a senator coming in later. I mean, I think it's kind of interesting. He's here. Oh my God. Hey, Senator Paul Strauss, welcome. So, it's really, really interesting that we're having this conversation with so many different people. We had nurse practitioners jumping in. So, I mean, I think I'm really grateful, Adam, that like, thank you for teaming up and creating this space. And before we rock this whole party going, I just want to acknowledge, hey, you, brother, for showing up and moderating and talking to the people in the audience. And I want to put that out there for everybody. Please like engage, like talk. The chat is a space for you guys to have fun and communicate with us. And we'll bring people in to have more of a conversation.
I think it's what separates this from a different style event, because the more interactive it is, the better this event will be. So I urge you guys, like, stay super active. That means if you're, if you need to go like, do your thing and kind of like have it on, that's cool. But if you're going to ask a question when we go to the question section and I'm picking from folks, we need your camera to be on. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I will not go to you and ask a question unless your camera is on. Is that cool?
Yeah, but I say no eggplant emojis, please. Like I'm so over that, right? I get that in my DMs all the time. Like, especially Adam sending me eggplant.
It's actually 90% of them are from me.
Yeah, I know. Stop, Adam. I'm done with the eggplants. All right. So all right, everybody, before we get this thing started, let's pull out some agreements. So WeDeepen squad, we have some agreement. We got agreement things that we could pop up that we can get everybody, not just the panelists, but also everybody who's here. We can do a little agreement, kind of like set some agreements before we start, like rules, right? Aren't they great, Adam?
Well, I mean, I think some guidance is nice.
Yeah. Rules they kind of like, they're decent sometimes, but sometimes you need some civil disobedience, but then sometimes not too much civil disobedience. Like, can it be civil disobedience? So, okay, here we go, guys. Let's do this. Let's actually do this physically. So we'll start with the first one, and we'll start, with like a little mudra, right? You get your like thumbs, get your thumbs over here. So during this whole experience, let's create a mindset of kindness, right? So that's the ask. Let's create a mindset of kindness, all right? So yes, we can have very important conversation. We can share our opinions. We can do all that, but let's do it with kindness, with that in mind, because that's actually where we make further traction with other people, right? That's one of the cool things I'm learning in NVC stuff right now. All right, you got your number one? Everybody got the number ones? All right, excellent. All right, let's do number twos. You got your number twos? Or you could do your Spock number two. You could do your Spock number two, or you could do your number two piece, or you could do your number two. You could do a Spock two. All right. So everyone practices the art of listening. So I think that's so important that we practice it, right? I mean, we're not all going to be great at it. There's going to be times where we want to say something and we're getting really excited, but please practice the art of listening. So when somebody else is speaking, when they're like sharing, let them share. All right. Sometimes I'll interrupt them to keep the thing flowing, but that's with kindness and love. So you guys all got it? Got to practice the art of listening. All right, excellent. Now, last but not least, don't take yourself too seriously. So you pick up 3, give me a 3, or you can give me a West Side, right? Or you can give me a, East Side, right? Give me a 3, okay? Don't take yourself too seriously. Have fun, right? Everybody here, make sure that, we actually can we can actually stretch further into parts of our consciousness if we have fun a little bit more, if we can laugh about certain things, not in in some sort of detrimental way, but like laughing with love, with respect, so we can move through conversation and actually, find some joy in this experience. Awesome. You guys got it? Cool. We're good to go. All right. Excellent. Let's get this thing started. All right. So there are going to be opinions shared in this conversation that are nuanced. This is a nuanced conversation. You guys, like, holy cow, this one especially, lockdown, closing, opening, like pandemic, quarantine, virus, public health, blah, blah. There's so many different nuances with this conversation, especially when we have all these protests happening and people are actually bending the rules with the nuance. So we got to like, this is a conversation that we appreciate the nuances, right? We understand that this is a paradoxical idea. So these ideas are enmeshing within each other. So let's talk about it with that understanding, that intention, that let's understand the nuances, not just of our own nuances, but others' nuances as well. So let's have that conversation. Adam, are you cool? Are you ready for some unity?
Yeah, I'm just so happy to be here with you. You look great. You look great. Look
Man,
terrific.
you too, dude. You look rugged. You look rugged.
Yeah, thank you. You know what I'm wearing a onesie right now. I got my onesie on. That's all I'll show you guys for now. You listen, I want to keep everybody focused.
You must focus, please.
But oh yes. Everybody.
You must focus, please. All right, is everybody focused, please? Okay, all right, good. All right, so let's get started, guys. So let's actually kick it off. Let's start it off with, let me before I even go down that road. We're starting with some introductions with everybody, and we got to order. We are going to be later on in this experience, we are going to be doing a experiment of breakout groups and breakout rooms. So I hope you guys love that. It's a kind of experiment. Have fun with it. We're like kind of playing with a lot of stuff, but we're bringing on the awesome peeps right now. And actually, let's start off with Tanicia. Tanicia, can you got 30 seconds or so? Everybody's got 30 seconds to introduce yourselves and what you do.
I'm Tanicia Peairs. I am a teacher. Particularly, I'm a middle school math and science teacher, a STEM teacher, and I have been teaching for 10 years. 9 of those years were at the Albany Unified School District, where I currently am. And I spent 1 year teaching in China. Oddly enough, I was teaching in China at the time that COVID broke out. So I had to leave China in early February. So I feel like I can bring a unique perspective to this panel. And I hope that you guys will welcome me into the community. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you, Tanicia. Awesome. All right. So next, teachers. Man, I'm always down with the teachers. All right. Next, let's bring on Senator Paul Strauss. Welcome. I'm glad you're alive and surviving out there. Yeah, please share. Take like 30 seconds or so. Just introduce yourself and what you do.
Sure. I'm Paul Strauss. I'm the elected United States Senator representing the District of Columbia. Today has been, of course, a very interesting and tragic day here in Washington, D.C. and at the Senate. As a result of a violent insurrection, 1 person was killed, and perhaps America's greatest gift to the world, the peaceful transition of power, was taken from us briefly during a violent takeover of the Capitol. The session has resumed and the certification of the votes will continue, but I felt it was important for me to keep the commitment I made to be here today, because I understand that some of you paid as much as $11 to join. And if that's not a solemn buy-in, then I don't. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Thank you, Senator, for showing up. And I think everybody can attest to the fact that our hearts are with you guys over there right now. Everybody, safe and okay?
I think we're safe. It's interesting. That's been the question I've gotten. So we're safe. We've been sheltered, and we've the city's under a curfew and a lockdown. But I would be lying if I said that what I saw today didn't shake me. And I think there's a big difference between being safe and being okay. So we're safe. But whether we're going to be okay, I think is yet to be seen. And if I suddenly have to pull away or check something, it's because, of course, we're monitoring the session. But I did want to meet with you all. I think it's important for us to be together at this moment in our history. And normally I'm a lot more upbeat and funny, but it's been one of those days.
We might have to pull it out of you a little bit. Sometimes the best way to move through, these situations is we gotta find the levity. So thank you, though. Thank you for being resilient and showing up. And so let's move on. Let's go to Gian Paolo. Will you tune in with who you are?
Yes, absolutely. Hello, everyone. I'm Gian Paolo. So I am a restaurateur and hospitality consultant. I was literally born into restaurants. I was in my mom's womb as she took tables in restaurants, and I was raised in restaurants beyond that, moving into the corporate realm of things for 10 years of my career. And now finding myself back with my family in their restaurant here in San Diego, very much as an active owner with them now, as we go through these interesting times and adapt and evolve in new and interesting ways. So I represent kind of the restaurant industry as a whole, I would presume, in this conversation. I stand on the side for opening. So that's a little bit of me, hospitality all the way.
Hold that thought. Okay. We're going to get you to dive in a little bit more. Okay. With your stand on what's going on. Okay. Next, let's get Casilda. Why don't you take a couple of moments to introduce yourself as well?
Hey there. Thank you for inviting me to this. It's such a great way to engage. So I come from a corporate background. I spent close to 10 years in product development and strategy marketing. And I took the last 8 years out of corporate to delve into transformational leadership and conscious capitalism, and to really look at connecting the heart to business, and to overall look at what's happening in our communities as a reflection of what's happening within us, and to really hold deeper levels of compassion. And I bridge my educational background in sociology and research and communications and marketing to this corporate background and also the spiritual world. So for me, it's really about looking at the narrative that's going on, and to see if we can get deeper beyond the surface level emotions and really care deeply about humanity.
Excellent. Thank you, Casilda. Thank you for your journey. All right, next, let's swing it over to Jay Wake.
Jay Wake here. I am a lover of nature and all human beings. My background is a data scientist, data engineer. Spent too many years working for big tech-like companies and corporate America, until about 2 years ago, I just woke up and realized if we keep building surveillance capitalism, it's going to take away our livelihood and leave us without privacy and some of the things that allow us to have freedom of conscience, freedom of voice, freedom of expression, etc. And so since then, I'm a startup entrepreneur working with a number of very disruptive startups, as well as a solutions architect at the Independent National Union, which is a union of all of the parties that aren't a part of this duopoly that's censoring all the other parties.
Excellent. Thank you, Jay. Thanks for your journey as well. Wow. Disrupting. All right. Last but not least, we had a last minute addition, which is awesome, Adam. We always like when people, mail us and message us about wanting to also contribute. That's what part of Mind Sports is about, is bringing in as many voices as possible when we talk about these topics. So we have a nurse practitioner who is, focuses in psychology, and she's on here, Jessica Stone. Will you introduce yourself and what you do?
Good evening, everyone. My name's Jessica, and I am a nurse practitioner, specialty in psychiatry. And my primary role is I work as a consultant for long-term care facilities. I also work part-time in the community with severe chronically mentally ill. And I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'm excited to be here. This is really fun, something new I've never done before, have a conversation with all you amazing individuals. So thank you.
So with that being said, how we're going to structure this is I'm going to give all of you now 2 minutes. We're going to actually go backwards. The order we just did, we're going to go reverse order. And we're going to kind of go over I'm going to give you guys about a minute. I'm going to give you 2 minutes, a timer. Okay. That timer now, keep in mind, is we're not like super strict on it. Only if you go way over, we'll but just keep that in mind. Like the 2 minutes, you'll hear a gong or something, but don't worry about that if you just keep it tight in your message. But let's hear your opinion for these 2 minutes going through all of you. But then keep this in mind as we are all presenting, as you are all presenting, we're going to then open it up where you guys can take notes. I hope you guys are taking notes, and you guys can then rebut what other people have said, maybe agree with other people, maybe offer some other perspective or information or whatever it is. So we want that after you guys all share your 2-minute spiels. Okay, is that cool? You guys okay with that? Okay, all right. So let's go backwards. So we got Jessica, it's you first.
Okay. So my view on reopening is I believe that we should be developing a strategic, a flexible, adaptive plan that is dependent on the current data and the stats of the pandemic, and that those decisions need to be developed or decided on a regional level. I think there's so many variables, and our country is, so big. And for example, living in Charlotte, North Carolina, I work in the city, and then I also work an hour away in rural North Carolina, where the variables are greatly different. So I do think it's important that these decisions are being made on a regional level. I think that the government does need to be involved in making these larger decisions about what needs to be done for the greater good. For ethically, I know that I'm interested to hear the other viewpoints, as I'm not involved in it personally, but I know that the country, people have lost so much, with their employment, with people, with isolation. I mean, their mental health is affected. But I think ultimately we have to think about the greater good and the lives that are being affected. And so that's my view. I'd like to hear other, viewpoints. It's hard for me to kind of give a general statement, such a broad, difficult subject,
Sure. That's why we're having the conversation. Thank you, Jessica. Yeah. All right. So let's swing it over to Jay.
Absolutely. So I always believe it's important to try to assess an argument from both sides equally. And so I think, there's if we can't break bread together, how can we live together kind of conversation. And so in this particular case, there's a practice. I break the bread and you choose which side, because if I break it and, weight it more on this side, and actually that's important for how we frame these conversations. If we're talking about opening versus closing the economy, I think it's relative to who is the decision maker. So top down, should the economy be closable? And this is should the government be able to close my business of cutting hair or, providing services, et cetera? That is a very important question that is actually relative to what is the government? Are we talking about my local government? Are we talking about my state government or my national government? And so there's a lot of nuance in there. And then the second way of looking at it is, from a bottom up, should my business be closable? If I'm feeling like I'm a vulnerable and I don't want customers coming in infecting me, should I be forced to go to work? And I'm just going to reference both of those sides, the top down, closable, bottom up, openable. And I believe that there's a really important nuance of communication and language as we discuss this.
Excellent. Beautiful. Thank you, Jay. All right, let's swing it over to Casilda.
Hi there. So for me, it's really complex and broad, as similar to what all of you are saying. I'm on the side of reopening, but with caution, being mindful of all the different factors. What I feel like we need to consider as a community is the total spectrum of what's happening, and hold deep compassion, not just for the COVID victims, but there is domestic violence on the rise, unreported domestic violence also, which we actually don't know what the real case numbers are. Depression is on the rise. And this is very personal for me because I lived with depression for 20 years. I'm completely free for a long time now, but I know how excruciatingly painful mental illness can be. So having someone who survived depression for over 20 years, chronic depression, and now coming on the other side of it, to me, this is quite serious. And it's not something that, because there's shame and stigma around it still to this day in society, I don't think we talk about it enough. And I think that sort of bodes to why there's an increase in suicides. And not everyone's reaching out for help. And even with the younger people, parents don't always know because young people are so often distracted by their gadgets. And they could be deeply depressed, and there's less visibility to these things. And then also the several other illnesses where we can't, it's harder to get treatment and even get diagnosis, because people who feel certain lumps and pains, because the number one disease, number one death in the US is still heart disease and cancer. But so many people won't even go in for screenings and get their regular tests done, given what where their resources are being managed. So for me, it's how can we bring greater levels of compassion while we absolutely need to acknowledge that, yes, there's a very strong virus and increase in death rate versus previous year. I think it's roughly about 1% in the US, a 1% increase in deaths. So yes, it shows that there are some things that we need to be careful of. And I also question, when places like Costco, which has hundreds of people in there all the time, why can not a small business with some cautionary boundaries set up? Why can't small businesses be open and ask our citizens to really be empowered and step in with their personal leadership? I believe in sovereignty, and I believe this is a call from the heart to be in balance with bureaucracy and personal autonomy. Because I think if not, we become an authoritarian society, and there's a bit of danger there. Thank you.
I'm like, wait, 3 seconds, and you did it right there. Beautiful, Casilda. Okay, Gian, can you?
Yes, thank you. Very well said so far, everyone. This is obviously a very sensitive topic. I mean, that word you said, Casilda, about compassion, I'm all for compassion in my neighbor and really promoting the well-being of everyone. And it's such a sensitive topic because these are people's lives we're talking about. So, but, one thing that I will say is in the midst of this, emotional topic, really, one of the things that should be applied with compassion is also equality. As you mentioned, Costco, hundreds of people can go into a Costco and, go shopping. And we all know when we're in the fruit aisle, we like to pick up the apple, and is this a good apple? Nah, maybe that's not a good apple. I'll pick up that apple. And there's no one going around sanitizing apples. You know what I mean? But in restaurants, for example, already prior to COVID, restaurants are some of the most sanitized places in general. On top of that, you put in, limitations such as 25% capacity and, 6 foot space between tables and doubled sanitation protocols. You've really upped it a whole lot. So at the end of the day, to allow for certain businesses such as supermarkets and whatnot, and honestly, and even in my area here, strip clubs to operate and remain open, but you limit specifically restaurants and you completely shut them down, not even to give them the opportunity to offer outdoor dining in a safe way. It's without any actually also evidence of saying, restaurants are actually causing this, guys. Here's the proof. It's tough, to just shut a whole industry down. We're talking about 15 million people nationwide employed. When you talk about the whole supply chain, we're talking 50 million people, farms and the supply network and everything. So a lot of people are being affected by this arbitrary decision to just shut restaurants down because they're supposedly causing a rise when it's not necessarily been proven. And there's a lot of other businesses that continue to stay open. So I'll put myself a timer on that one.
Nice. Checking yourself.
Such a responsible guest.
Very responsible. All right, let's swing it over to the good senator.
Thank you very much. I actually had the privilege of serving on the District of Columbia Reopen Committee. I was appointed by the mayor, and we had various experts. And so on behalf of parts of the government, I had to make some of these decisions. I actually had to focus on hotels. It was part of a committee and the subcommittee. So we've looked at some of these. First of all, the terrible botched way we've handled this virus as a nation has given us some false choices that other countries haven't had to deal with. First of all, if we're going to force somebody's restaurant to close for a period of time, then we absolutely owe it to them to be providing assistance to the business and to their employees so that we're not forcing them to go bankrupt. The idea that we're going to ruin businesses or we're going to endanger lives is a false choice. We in the United States had the resources to do both of those things. We have a distorted economic way that we treat our national defense that has failed us. We failed to invest enough in cybersecurity. We failed to prepare adequately for a pandemic like this, despite plans that used to be in the works and executed. We let our stockpiles of N95s deplete. So some terrible things have been made. So if we talk about closing something, the idea that we're putting somebody out of business shouldn't necessarily follow. It's not how other countries have done it. And we have been unique that way. Same with laying off workers. They should be getting the kind of assistance that they've been getting in places like Europe. So public health needs to be the priority. And it's a shame that it has gotten as bad as it has. Obviously, Maslow had a hierarchy of needs. There's other ways you can look at it. Our government has instituted amongst us to preserve certain rights which we hold to be unalienable. And whether you believe they're endowed by a creator or nature or whatever, that's what government does to protect those rights. And of course, among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I think as we rank them, let's just say that life probably number one, certainly in terms of the protection. If the state is going to take somebody's life, it's the highest level of due process. And protecting our life and our safety is the most important thing we get from government. Liberty, important, and the pursuit of happiness, obviously a wonderful ideal. But if you lose your life, that is a state that remains permanent. And so we have to protect people from whenever we can. This has been a disease that has taken 1 out of every 1,000 Americans this year. We have a death rate that is among the highest in the world. We have the number of cases that is the highest in the world. And per population, our numbers are way out of whack with some of the more civilized industrial nations. And there are places that have done such a good job that have essentially eradicated it. Australia had less than 1,000 fatalities. And it's a whole continent, not just a country. The Republic of China and Taiwan, other places have been able to effectively treat this. So we have done a terrible job. The primary level of having of dealing with this is at the state level. That's because of our constitutional federal republic. But the failure of leadership when we're facing national, international crisis should be at the top. And we haven't done that. And so it has fallen mostly to our governors, but in the cases of places like Washington, D.C., where we don't have a governor, to our district government, which is led by a mayor, to do the best we can. And these are difficult decisions, but we have to basically start with the fact of we have to protect safety. And finally, it shouldn't be lost on us that the highest rate of fatality happens to be for the least amongst us, people of color, low-income communities, people who already don't have access to adequate health care. We have the most asinine system where we ration healthcare like a corporate commodity instead of providing it to all of their citizens like almost every other country in the world. So that is a system that has failed on so many levels, but that the fault lines have been blown up because of this horrible virus. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And really quickly, Adam, like I always get confused about this. Is Australia a continent or is it Oceania? Is that like Oceania? Like what's one is it? They're both continents, right?
No, it's ocean.
Yeah, somebody would jump in there.
Is
I'm not sure where you go with that one, big guy.
It's Australia, New Zealand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oceania is Australia, New Zealand, and it also includes some islands of.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's little friends.
So that's a good segue. We'll bring up New Zealand in a little bit. That'll be definitely a little pointer. But let's wrap this up with Tanicia. Will you please share your spiel?
Sure. And I feel like I may be mirroring a few points that have already been said. I personally side on opening, but with caution. However, I don't feel like there is an infrastructure in place that would support a safe opening, especially not when it comes to the realm of education. So on a personal side note, I am a woman of color, I am a teacher, and my biggest mandate is also to service my community of color. But I also have to note that, just like Senator Strauss noted, that my community is really, really affected by this on a personal level. I've had 5 relatives within my family that all live in the South, in Mississippi and Alabama, that have passed away because of complications from COVID-19. And also in these same states, they chose to open their schools prematurely and then have to deal with opening and closing as their cases surged, and then, died down. I teach in the Bay Area, and within the San Francisco Bay Area, the communities that are within are definitely, you've got upper middle class, upper class, all the way down to, those who are poor, the American poor. And so with public education, all of these students already before COVID are not receiving the most equitable education. And now you have a bigger barrier when we have to rely on distance learning in order to give instruction to our students. Not all students have access to computers, to Wi-Fi, and to those sort of technology tools. And most school districts don't necessarily have the resources to make that equitable for their students. I also have to note that in my personal school district, we aim to keep our classes with distance learning. However, we have been listening to the mandate of the state. And so within our own school district, we don't necessarily have a choice. We're being told what to do by the state, without necessarily the resources to make sure that we have safe opening, like Gian Paolo talked about, where we have means to sanitize our own classrooms. We don't have contact tracing, and we don't have the means to test our students on a regular basis, which would also make it, a lot more, which would make it easier to open. And I also want to talk about the fact that, like, my students are feeling this. They miss their friends. They miss being in class. And for once, they actually miss their teachers. Who would have thought, right? We have kids that are saying that they can't wait to get back to school, but we can't do that because we just simply don't have what would make their return safe. And if we did, look, the first place I would want to be is in a classroom with my kiddos, tricking them into thinking that math is the best subject in the whole wide world, and seeing the great things that they can learn from science. So yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Tanicia. Well, so okay, so you guys have all heard everybody. There probably is some agreement. There might be some disagreement. I hope there's a little bit of both. And if you don't, I think even if you don't personally have any disagreement, let me invite you to kind of play a devil's advocate, or maybe emulate what you've faced out there, whether it was on social media or with people that was like you, Senator Strauss, the different people you have to interact with. Where have you seen the opposition or the polarities too, and the disagreement? So does anybody want to kick that off? It's open with all you guys.
I want to say the biggest disagreement that I've experienced, especially as a teacher, is that we're kind of at war within our own community, where our parents are really gung-ho about opening schools and doing it as quickly as possible. And so since the beginning of the year, we have constantly been in negotiations and in debates on how we are going to open the schools. We know that kids from grades 6 through 12 can actually get COVID-19 and can die from it. And so it's put us in odds because we're kind of like, hold up. Let's plan this. And the parents are like, no, we need our kids back in school right now. We see that they're depressed, that they're hunched over, that it's affecting them physically and mentally. So it's really put teachers and parents within the same community that are seeking to nurture their child at odds with one another.
I think the biggest misunderstanding or disagreement we've seen is that somehow that if we just let all these businesses open and do everything they wanted, that we would have a good economy. And so for a while, we had been able to essentially restore indoor dining, which we currently had to close down for a brief period because the transmission rate shot up. But while we had indoor dining and had opened up these restaurants, people weren't going. And they weren't going because they were afraid. There wasn't a perception in the community that it was safe to visit some of these businesses. We saw some of the other businesses bounce back. And so for the first few weeks of the lockdown, we had a mortar. Most retail businesses were closed. As we began to reopen them, we saw some come back. So if you have a retail store and you're selling furniture, or if you're selling clothes, to some extent, you can operate safely so long as you have a mask mandate, so long as you have reasonable distancing in place and you take reasonable precautions. Restaurants were uniquely dangerous because you can't eat through the mask. And so if you're going to be inside at a restaurant or even outside at a restaurant, everybody will be taking their mask off for a significant portion of the time while they're there. And then as you go through different industries, you know, we looked at hotels and things like that, and we had kind of phased in reopenings. But telling a business they can open and then actually having customers wanting to go and support it are two very, very different things. And so until we get a degree of consumer confidence back that they're going to be safe going out, a lot of this is a largely academic exercise. School attendance, of course, we can make compulsory, but the real risk is, I heard one case where a teacher actually died while on a monitor through, it all really depends.
Anyone else?
And yeah, I have a few thoughts on what's being shared. I think all of us, I think at the end of the day, we share a common goal, that which we want people to be thriving, safe. I think with that said, and you know, that I think that's what's beautiful about humanity. With that said, I would like us to consider those who get COVID. Yes, the mortality is there, but the statistics I'm looking at, the age range where the highest deaths are is over 65. So definitely our seniors need to be protected. And in terms of the virus spreading, when you really look at data and statistics and where it spreads, that's something else that we need to look take a closer look, and that might be region by region, because I know there's statistical difference. So I'm someone, given my marketing research background, I look at macro trends and then anecdotal micro, just because we don't want to lose the human part of it. So what I'm not seeing mainstream yet, and I would love for this to shift in that very quickly, is how do we bring wellness care as part of the strategic planning to reopen, such as mainstream, not in silos, not in niche groups, but mainstream conversations about preventative care that empowers and teaches even the most disenfranchised or the most highest risk, which I've heard is Black and brown people. My background itself being brown and having lots of Black friends, I mean, I look at this and I'm like, well, we are all capable of learning how to learning new skills. And the tools to bring this greater awareness, so that, you know, because I think as Senator was saying, people don't necessarily go out. Well, that's because the fear has set in so deeply that even with reopening, it's going to take a while to rebuild our economy and the confidence, and to do it safely. So I think higher, more heartfelt conversations of how to do this safely, and not just from a medical after the fact point of view, but a very thorough, thought out, preventative. And let's bring in some functional medicine doctors. Let's bring in holistic doctors and naturopaths and have these conversations, experts in their field, and bring a task force together and have this conversation.
So Casilda, I while you were speaking, I could see two people getting closer to the camera. I was noticing Jessica and Gian getting closer. So who wants to go first?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I'll go. I agree with a lot of what Casilda is saying. I think that what the government is using now is expert panel, but I do think that they need to bring in a more holistic panel with much more perspectives, and I do think addressing the mental health of the population is really important too. I think my concern is where even if we have where we're learning the techniques to be safer, that people are still going to choose not to do this. One simple example is wearing masks. Unfortunately, we know that helps prevent the spread, and people still choose not to wear masks because they believe it's an infringement of their right. And so that's what's concerning to me. And not that I'm saying that you're wrong, that's just a concern that I have.
Yeah, if I can jump in, I mean, listening to everybody, I mean, we have to ask ourselves, what is our goal? Our goal is to technically stop the virus, or at least, reduce the curve, or stop the spread in some way, shape, or form. And then the question is, how do you effectively do that? Well, I guess that's what we're debating today. But there also needs to be some bit of logic, I think, applied in some ways. Like, for example, we are a restaurant in East County, San Diego, that is mandated to close, and it was mandated to close for a very large portion of the year. Just across the state line in Arizona, everybody was fully open. And so you had the majority of, the population that was near us every weekend, we're off to Arizona because they're open. So we'll see you, So it's like interstate travel, going to places where there is no limitations and there's potentially greater risk. And then people coming back to our community, people, doing what they will do, gathering in their own homes and doing what they're doing, like you said, choosing not to wear their masks. And, unfortunately, the mask became a political debate, which I think was the biggest no-no, was the politicalization of this entire virus, and whether or not one should wear a mask and whether we should be open or closed. It seems to have gone on either side of political spectrum. And I think that was the main issue all along. I think that if we had, come together, and we still have the opportunity to come together and, unify, putting political stances aside and really applying logic. I mean, you look at a city like Los Angeles, which has been, restaurants, for example, have been closed for pretty much the entire year for just takeout. And there was very, very small pockets that they had the opportunity to open for, outdoor dining. And LA is technically ground zero right now, in the virus. So is closing restaurants proving to be effective in Los Angeles? I don't see a direct correlation in that. And so, when I say restaurants, speaking to, even schools and whatnot, all these things that are closed, and still the city is the epicenter, supposedly, is the closing the solution? I don't know.
Jay?
I might jump in there. I love what you said about the politicalization, the polarization around mask or no mask has distracted us way too long from what really matters, which is, yes, small businesses are suffering, people are suffering. What do they need and how can we help them? Who gets to decide? Who gets to be in control? Like, come on, like, why are we focusing so much energy on the control question? Well, unfortunately, because our economy is literally failing. Our financial system is going to be digitized. And if they can distract us with masks versus no masks, if we fight with our neighbors and our teachers and our family, then we're not talking about some of the most important issues, like what happens when we need to move away from the US dollar or something like that. So there's some interesting framing going on here, and there's like, I just want to acknowledge this space. I believe this is the solution. Being able to come together, forget the left and the right. let's come into the middle and discuss a path forward that works for everyone. And I'm grateful that we have that space, and I'm grateful that all of us are letting go of who's right, and let's talk about what's right.
Okay. Well, let me be clear. I think doctors, medical experts, scientists are right, and people who are ignoring experts on the area of their expertise probably are not right. So wearing masks shouldn't be a political issue because it was a medical fact. The countries that had high mask rate uses have beaten this virus in a way that we haven't. The cities in the areas that have high mask rate use, it has shown to been able to prevent it. The better masks do a better job of preventing them. And, you know, it was unfortunate that we couldn't get everybody the kind of high quality masks that they needed because they're cheap, relatively easy to produce. And we didn't have enough of them when we should have. But I don't mean to, maybe I misunderstood, but were you suggesting that somehow the mask thing is designed to trick people into having a position on cryptocurrency, or the two are related somehow?
No,
I was confused.
Yeah, let me clarify. First of all, let me also mention that the World Health Organization at one point said masks are ineffective. So not all scientists are always the trusted authority.
I agree with that.
That
Yes.
acknowledged, you know, so then it's really a question of who can we trust? And trust is unfortunately the primary issue here. And what I was specifically getting at was our financial system started to show signs of distress back in September of 2019, when the repocalypse began. You can Google that, repocalypse. And yeah, we've had some fear and debate around what we need to be doing to survive. But year over year, the death rate this year was not significantly any different than last year or the year before that. But fortunately, there's one miracle that happened this year. We basically eliminated most deaths from flu and influenza. So that's been kind of a miracle, or some data manipulation.
Yeah, I just don't know that either of those statistics are true. We've added 350,000 people to the death rolls that we didn't have it. Flu, we've had a pretty good plan to vaccinate people and get the flu shots out. You know, by keeping people apart generally for the super contagious diseases, yeah, we did reduce the spread of some other diseases. But we know how to stop the spread of deadly virus. We've eradicated a lot of diseases. We've eradicated smallpox. We've eradicated a variety of these things. And thankfully, we're on the way to getting rid of this with vaccines that most people feel are safe and effective as we can get them out if we could produce them fast enough. So, you know, we're probably half a year away from being able to get back to getting this thing under control. And sorry it's taken that long. But I heard the statistic last night that more people haven't died this year than last year. That's just not true. And the flu deaths seem to have been relatively constant. Now, we are losing people also because our healthcare system is overwhelmed. Hospitals, ambulance drivers are being told that if you have a patient that is unlikely to be resuscitated, don't take them because we don't have a bed for them. So there is a statistic that it's hard to quantify, but I know people who we've lost who may have gone to the hospital, have had heart attacks and didn't because the healthcare system isn't functioning the way it should be. We don't have the capacity. But no, we've had a lot more death this year, and I don't understand where we're getting these.
Can I jump in and help you out?
Yeah.
Where a lot of that stuff comes from is memes, and then no offense, but people that I know and love take those memes and pass them off as fact. And I've heard in our discussion, Paul, last night and then tonight, I've heard about 3 or 4 of those instances right now that is just not based in actual reality. And so I challenge you guys that going forward, I think we'll probably eventually get a fact checker on this show so that we can do it in real time. Because if you're going to be using some statistics, so it's like, make sure you're able to cite them and know where they're coming from. Is that fair?
Yeah, and that also opens up, I asked all of you to, bring up a specific or a data point that really is important for you guys. And so I would love to hear some of that. But before we even bring that up, wait, actually, I see Gian Paolo. All right, Gian, go for it. I see you.
I just want to ask, I mean, we talked, first of all, I think that the politicalization of the mask thing, whether to depict what it's distracting us from, that's subjective, but it is definitely distracting us from compassion towards each other. You know what I mean? And just, something that, even if it's not 100% proven in fact, it makes sense. If I cover my mouth with something, spit doesn't go to places, and it should promote a little more safety. So again, a little bit of logic in that regard, but it should never have become such a deep issue. But what I really want to ask is something even for Paul. When we make the remark, the hospital systems are overwhelmed.
It's 7:00.
Sorry, that was my computer.
Okay. When you say the hospital systems are, overwhelmed, I mean, we're coming at a point now, for example, that, we've been in the middle of the pandemic for a year at this point, and we forecasted a second wave, we kind of just kept on going, all these things, Paul, in your opinion, and anybody else, have we done enough to prepare, this whole year, knowing that our healthcare system was going to be overwhelmed? Did we build emergency hospitals? Did we prepare in a way to take care of this increase in need that we would have had? I don't see any emergency hospitals anywhere throughout Southern California. I don't see any, I'm a festival goer, for example. You go to Burning Man, and a city of 70,000 people erupts over the course of a week with a hospital, a police station, with a DMV, there's massive tents and all these kinds of things. We can put together a music festival like that, and we can put together multiple all over the world, but we can't build emergency tent hospitals and things like that. That's a legitimate question that, I'm not experienced enough to answer, but
I have.
Let me.
Casilda, go ahead.
I would like to challenge that the hospitals are overwhelmed, because I have several people who work on the front line, and they say that, yes, there's probably moments and days where certain ICU might have been overwhelmed, but on the general, what I'm hearing from frontline workers, not just one or two, from many, is that they're not overwhelmed. In fact, they're actually facing budget issues because they don't have as much revenue due to a lot of other services not being available and people not coming in. So I think there's, not to say again, by region, by specific places, there might be some that are overwhelmed. So it's sort of not black and white. And there are many, and so this is something, how do we factor for this? Because these kind of blanket statements that the medical system is overwhelmed sort of does a disservice to the overall sort of how do we move forward conversation, because then we're fixing a problem that might not be a problem.
Okay, this is where we have this issue where, anecdotal evidence isn't an actual bed count census. The part of the hospitals that are being overwhelmed are the intensive care units, the beds, the respirators, the part of the system that needs to treat this. So yeah, are there areas where they used to do elective surgery, cosmetic surgery, other types of surgeries that aren't being done, that are underutilized? Sure, but you can't just take every part of the hospital and convert it to a COVID ward because of the isolation, because of the specific type of thing. So only certain parts of the hospital are capable of providing the full service round-the-clock ICU care. We only had so many ventilators. We did do a very good job of quickly scaling up. In Washington, D.C., we basically turned our convention center into a makeshift hospital. We sent military ships to New York at the peak of New York's wave, and they began to convert beds into the Javits Center, which is their large convention center. So there are things you can do to quickly scale up, and we've done them. But if you're sick enough, if the viral load is high enough in you, and you get the disease that badly, and you need a ventilator, there's really just so many to go around. And right now, those systems continue to be overwhelmed, and we don't have enough beds to treat them. Now, that's also in the United States. I know you're in Canada. Canada gives everybody health care, much better system. They've dealt with the virus way better. And so, I know a lot of people that would love to be in Canada right now. A more reactionary country probably would have built a wall on their southern border. Thankfully, our neighbors to the north didn't do that. but we do need to, it's bad. And if you have, remember, I'm maybe a little on edge today because my city was taken over by people who didn't get real information, who think that we had a fraudulent and fake election. We've had people who, and I get that there are trust issues, and a lot of that has to do because at the very top of our nation state here in the United States, we had a president that would blatantly lie about this stuff. He admitted that he lied about the severity of the virus in the beginning. He had a personal agenda for trying to minimize its impact. He had a group of supporters that, for whatever reason, considered medical scientists coastal elitists and eggheads, and didn't want to trust independent data. So, if you're getting your news from Facebook and not CBS, you're getting very kind of different distorted facts, and all of that played into each other. So when he says maybe inject yourself with bleach or whatever, people begin to not know who to believe. That's unfortunate.
Wait, hold on 1 second. Let's really quickly, there's people chatting in the chat. I want to acknowledge. Adam, is there anybody you want to bring up? Or
yeah, I'm loving my chat friends. Y'all are so good. I love how active it's been. I think Brian's made a lot of good points. And so Brian, I'm going to toss to you if you'd like to jump in there.
Let's give you a minute or minute and a half.
Can we unmute Brian?
Oh, you're where are you, Brian? You went mute. Oh, there you go.
Hi everybody. I have been traveling almost nonstop for the last 6 months. I've been to 27 states. So I've seen what's open and what's not open. I'm in Florida right now, which is wide open. I'm doing a comedy show here tomorrow night with a live audience. And I got to tell you, some of the things that people say, like Florida has a radical approach, or this other place has a radical approach by being open. The radical approach is the lockdown. The radical approach is the masks, because we have had histories of viruses and treatments, and never one time have we taken this approach. And we have taken this approach without the science to support it. We took this approach because China locked down. They made an announcement that this worked, and everybody decided that that was proof that it works. There's no science anywhere in the world that a lockdown has made any bit of difference. There's no science in the world that has proven that mitigation efforts such as masks has made a difference. All of it is wishful thinking. So we hope the masks work. We hope the lockdowns work. But to say like, this is what the experts say and they know better, that's lunacy. It is a radical approach to go with masks and lockdowns and say, this is going to work while we're ruining people's lives. I think that if I had my business shut down, I'd want some data to support that it works. And we don't have that data. We keep throwing out stats like hospitals are overwhelmed. No, they're not. A handful of very badly run hospitals have been stressed at various points. But overall, our hospital system has less people in it right now than it did on January 6, 2020. So we throw out these scary things to justify radical actions. That's not fair.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you so much for that. That was a breath of fresh air. Thank you.
I am
Jessica, yes.
Yeah.
We really do know that the hospital ICU wards, the respiratory care units, have lots more people in them now than they did before the virus. So
a couple do.
I understand. All right.
Most 97% have less people. So we keep saying the 3 hospitals in Los Angeles.
What source is that coming from?
You can look on any
Senator. If you want some
county
sources, I'd be. Yeah.
You can look on any.
Yeah, if you want to post some sources in the chat, that'd be great.
Well, again, you can look at any county, state level hospitalization site. Not only can you look at the capacity now, none are over 100% capacity, and then you can compare them to last year. That data is available. So people throwing out anecdotes like
give me one. I mean.
Look up Washington, D.C. right now. You won't find one hospital in Washington, D.C. that is at 100% ICU capacity. You won't. You know how to get those numbers.
Let's post that. And really quickly, Jessica, I want to acknowledge you. You were saying
we're about 87%, but I think
87% is normal. 87% is what hospitals operate at. They're just like hotels. They're just like airlines. That's the business model, to operate between 75 and 90% capacity. And so we're not giving any context to these scary numbers. We're saying 87% of people freak out. That's what hospitals operate at every single day. And you should know that.
So, I mean, Brian, I want to go, ask you a question about, I think, So with your point about that the lockdown or any of the laws for social distancing or masks haven't made any impact, I'm curious to know where you got that information from, because there are several sources that show that the R value of COVID-19 reduced to under 1, which is ultimately the goal. When it's under 1, then the rates are going to continue to decrease. So they were able to achieve that with the lockdown and with other regulations.
By the time, anywhere where they do those studies, by the time those numbers start to go down, the numbers were going down before the lockdown. So everywhere in the world, the virus has the same curve. It goes up and it goes down.
Sure, but you see multiple curves, and it's because of those things
it's
that
because the virus is gonna virus.
Okay, well that's, I guess you know, say virus is going to do whatever it does because it follows rules, and that's what the experts are able to predict and achieve the data from.
We're cherry picking experts, because for every expert that says this, there's 3 that say that. So we're choosing experts. Experts are definitely not in unison on this globally.
I agree with the part on the experts, because I do think the experts that disagree with the narrative of mainstream seems to get silenced and their voice is suppressed. So and this is where trust issues keep coming up. And it seems to be only selective narratives that have the mainstream media's attention. So then, it bodes to question, is there corruption that's happening? And is there another agenda? Which again leads to mistrust. And even any attempts to harmonize this, to get us to an aligned state where we're working together, it falls apart, because it seems that there's a lot of mistrust.
I guess, what's the motive? What would be the motive?
Well, and trying to assess motive, that gets us into conspiracy analysis, which I think is an interesting path. But I don't think we want to go there as a group right now.
No, but if you're declaring that there is some sort of intention behind misrepresenting numbers, then you have to explain what you believe that intention is. Does that make sense?
I can explain it if you'd like,
Please, Jim. Jim has been very active in the chat.
Actually,
Jim, thank you. Go ahead.
Mind if I introduce you, Jim?
No, go ahead.
I invited Jim. Jim was actually on a COVID task force last year, where he was he's been a healthcare administrator for 12 years and has been working with a small business development bureau for the last couple of years as well. So very relevant experience in both domains. And so go ahead, Jim.
Well, I think sometimes we gather our data the wrong way. I mean, most of it, if you just follow the money, and I don't want to say it's because of money, but we as a hospital system, having been in it from when it started back in the early days to when I left it, where we made a lot of adjustments, how we bill things. It's called designated groupings, DRGs. We put everything in a pot so we can bill and get reimbursed. COVID is a terrible thing, no question about it. It will kill people, but it doesn't kill as it's an individual disease. It amplifies other things in our bodies and we die. But those other things are not counted because we have more reimbursement as a hospital from COVID under the system. So as a hospital, as a business model, you bet I'm going to say everything comes in and has even a trace of COVID, because we don't know exactly how it caused the death, but that's why people over 65 are more likely to die from it, because they have other things they've carried with them throughout their lives. Mm-hmm. So there's some jack function within that. There's some problems within that, but it's just data. And I think the problem we have right now among all of us is we are basing our decisions on data that is not educationally taught to us. You were saying, the senator has got some great points about the statistics he receives. But if you went to a hospital and say, let me see your books of actually what these people died from, all the different diseases they had, how can we declare that COVID was the #1 reason that they died? Do we have that statistical information? No, because it takes too much effort. And it's easier to say, COVID, our reimbursement rate is this, and it's fine. But that's just because, but we educated people and said, people, why are people dying? Well, normally they're sick first. That's why they go to the hospital. COVID makes them sicker, so they die. Influenza was the same way. Many diseases are the same way. The flu, people die of the flu, not necessarily the flu as much. It's because their immune system is bad. They've been smoking. They've had other diseases, kills them. So I'm just a simple point. the other side of the coin with me for Small Business Administration, which I work for the SBA right now and helping small businesses. Yeah, it's devastating to them. But most of it's because we are in a society that does not teach some real basic understanding. We don't go to the people who really need, we just give them our hypothesis of what's happening. And I don't want to discount, DC, but they don't say, here's the reality of what's going on. They're afraid we won't understand it. And I think that's our biggest problem we have right now.
Thank you, Jim. That was really insightful. And I think I saw Tanicia wanting to say something. Tanicia?
I was just going to sort of address what Brian was talking about, because he sort of added an anecdotal point about China. And I was in China, in Dongguan, at the southern part of it, at the inception of COVID and everything. So I not only am I familiar with like the sudden drastic lockdown that happened within 24 hours, and the restrictions that were given across the country from one overarching government, regardless of the province that you're in, but also, again, teacher, so I know how that trickled down in the education system. And so because they were able to have a drastic lockdown, they also were not allowing employees that had left the country to come back in. They closed borders solidly. And so because of that, sort of sacrifice, schools were able to reopen before the end of the school year in May. However, I wasn't able to return to my post because I was outside of China at the time and I wasn't welcome. Right now, also the way that China reports its statistics is quite different compared to American media. So you will not only know active cases, you'll know deaths, you'll know the percentage. So that all of that is broadly broadcast to the public. And it goes down to like the district you are in your particular city that you're in. And so that you're able to trace that. And also the government gave schools, public schools, as well as international schools and private schools, so many resources in order to return to school on time. And those are things that I just don't see here in the United States. And so I guess my point is that this is more than just China saying, well, we locked things down and then they told us that it worked, and it did work. It's not anecdotal. It did work for them. And when there is a new case that's reported, it's dealt with decisively. And family units and blocks are restricted in their movement and everything.
With that being said, does anybody here have any statistics or data points to share that you guys?
Yeah. Actually, I'd like to jump in on that. Mm-hmm. Just kind of piggybacking off of what Jim said. Part of the major problem in the United States that's different than China is that we're a far unhealthier country than China. And so out of those COVID deaths, 94% of them have a comorbidity, meaning that there is some sort of pre-existing condition, whether it's diabetes, hypertension. When you have something that attacks the lungs, inflammation within the body makes it more susceptible to this particular coronavirus. And so we have to look at these short-term solutions, but in the long term, the narrative has to change. The United States government, our wonderful senators, we subsidize fast food, and we subsidize these. Yeah, and so look, if you're able to go to McDonald's or go to Burger King and get a burger, a fries, a Coca-Cola, and a fucking toy for $3, okay? Mm-hmm. Yet yeah, an avocado is $3. Look, if you had subsidized avocados, you know, you'd have a different result. But this goes back into the structure of our country it was, I think, with innocuous purposes in mind to feed people on a larger scale, but it invested in the wrong things. And so going forward, we have to start negotiating, recapitulating a new way forward. And that is preventative healthcare through keeping ourselves healthy. You know, when you have hypertension, when you have diabetes, you're more susceptible to this type of disease.
I'd like to chime in on that, Adam, because so one of the things, yes, I'm Canadian based in Toronto. However, I've worked in the US a lot. I've had a global career. I'm not Canadian specific. My corporate background is a lot with American companies. And also I'm quite up to date on what's happening in the US. So with that said, one of the structural issues that to go into that, and also Jim, thank you so much. I've heard from many, I have many friends in the US system that are in hospital administration. So I second what Jim shared about the way billing is handled and how you just get paid more if you bill it as COVID through insurance. So these are all the information that I'm looking at. So I was really glad to hear that. So with that, what Adam is saying, I'm absolutely in line with, because, you know, when we continue, but the government using taxpayer dollars continues to subsidize toxic food, GMO-based farming, and just toxic production of foods, and versus subsidizing healthy, nutritious food to bring the costs down, there's a fundamental issue as just humanity and what we value. So I think there's deeper, higher level questions, and that's obviously a longer term picture. And I know that, you know, these kinds of things are not easy to change overnight, but can we actually put these things on the table of how do we actually fundamentally change what's funded? And I know there's lobby groups and big pharma involved, and this is where the skepticism and the cynicism of many of us comes in. It's like, what lobby groups are paying for what? Where the best interest of the American people, it doesn't feel like is the first thing that's being considered, though on the surface, it seems that way. Thank you.
Well, I mean, you're absolutely right that we have distorted economic priorities. So one, the very fact that we're talking about our healthcare system as a business model and not the way other countries do it as a government-run entity, because we're funding a necessity, is distorted. We don't talk about our military as a business model. We don't talk about other public services as a business model. We don't talk about primary education as a business model. We're talking about government providing services. Healthcare needs to move in that. So I think the idea that hospitals get to charge more for COVID than other diseases is not exactly how it works. Heart attacks are the #1 killer, but heart attacks aren't necessarily contagious in the same way that COVID is contagious. So we have reporting requirements that we're imposing because we need to track this. If you die, if COVID is the contributor to what ultimately kills you, but for the COVID, you may not have died from that this year, maybe eventually, sure. Diabetes eventually will kill. Heart disease will eventually kill. But if this is the accelerant, then that will be the cause of death. I mean, if I'm walking down the street and I have high blood pressure, but I'm hit by a truck, it's the truck that has been the accelerant to my death, not the hypertension. So everything you're saying about our food system, the food deserts we have here in DC, the reason that COVID has had such a disproportionate impact on the African-American community, for example, especially among my constituency, is because the diet is terrible. You have we have food deserts. We don't have the kind of things that we should be doing. And when we become all responsible for each other's healthcare costs, we're going to want to shift economically. We're not going to want to allow these cheap, unhealthy foods to be done. Once we take the profit out of the healthcare system, which I think is important, and we all become financially responsible for each other's well-being, which in a way we really are. We just don't realize it because of our system. You're going to see more of a change. But right now we have an immediate crisis. So when we're in the middle of fighting the fire, It's where do you turn the hose right now? Is it a good time to have a point about architectural redesign for how you build buildings in the future? Absolutely. But until we put the fire out of this building, what we can do to improve the next one, it's not really the discussion we need to be having.
That's an interesting point you make, Senator, because one of the quotes that's been resonating in my life right now, especially with the farmers' protest happening in India, is one of the billionaires in India, who's kind of like the Bezos of India. He has cooperated with Modi, the prime minister, and there was a quote he had with Zuckerberg. There's an interview with Zuckerberg and Ambani, this billionaire, and he said you should never let a good crisis go to waste. Right. And this is a billionaire knowing that like a crisis is an opportunity to make a lot more money. And we've seen this with billionaires all across the world. It's not just India. And my ask is that is like, what about us treating it the other way? Like, what if compassion and people who like were like utilizing this crisis to also reinvent everything quickly rather than it taking 20 years for us to do it? But why do billionaires have to be the only ones to take advantage? Why can't compassionate citizens who really care about changing the healthcare system in a radical way, like overnight, not like taking 10 years? I mean, it's going to help bring down the cases too. I mean, I'm just throwing that quote in there because I think that's amazing. That why can't we flip the script? Why do billionaires have to always be the ones? Anyways, wait, Casilda, hold on 1 second. I really want to acknowledge Jessica in this conversation really quickly. Jessica, like you're in the hospital. Like, have you had education about eating, telling your patients to eat healthier, being conscious of how the gut-brain connection and the immune system connection, like, has that been something that you guys have had meetings about to increase that in your patients and in the hospital system?
Absolutely. The problem is that the issue with the underlying health conditions in our citizens and the choices that they make. They know what the healthy choices are, but they don't make them because, you know, as Adam said, I think a lot of it has to do with your socioeconomic status, and it's more affordable. The unhealthy choices are more affordable. So I think there's a lot of underlying issues there but healthcare industry, we are teaching patients that's always a goal for us. But there's many other issues. But I mean, healthcare, it's definitely a flawed system. I agree with the senator that it should not be based on, it shouldn't be capitalism, you know, it should be a public health service. And I see areas all the time where it's very frustrating because the bottom line is what matters in a lot of areas. But I just lost my train of thought.
Get that train. It's right there. It's right behind you.
But yeah, so I mean, what I was gonna say is I think functional medicine is not valued as much in our healthcare and Western medicine as it should be, but hopefully that will change and evolve with time.
Excellent, thank you. Anybody else, Jay?
You know, one thing to just kind of add to that is that there seems to be a recurring pattern that I'm hearing we discuss a lot is like it's about incentives. Some people call it motives, but there's a number of perverse incentives, and then there's completely misaligned incentives, like subsidies for junk food rather than healthy food, paying more for, you know, a COVID death rather than a common flu death or something like that. I'm not saying that I'm just saying that those are some of the incentives that are in place and what happens because of it. And so kind of getting into accountability and responsibility, I think is one of the most neglected conversations in this whole lockdown piece. If a politician shuts down by business and they made the wrong call, where's their accountability? I'm going bankrupt. If a health department worker comes in and says, no, you can't do haircuts anymore, and I foreclose on my mortgage, who's accountable for that? And so there's a big accountability piece that that I think is often neglected in this conversation. And Jim told me this about healthcare. Hospitals are self-regulated. Not every piece of them are self-regulated, but they're self-regulated. We have the ability to come together and as a community create a policy and self-regulate, and that works. we do not have to wait for someone thousands of miles away who doesn't understand the death rate or the hospital rate in our particular town to self-regulate. So I submit that the solution isn't anarchy or give control to the complete government. I suggest the solution is more cooperatives, more alliances, more working together, and independence unifying to solve these conversations like we're having now.
Jean, I want to give you up. I could see you were going to say something.
I mean, lots of things. I mean, the fact that these incentives, you talk about like tobacco usage, you know what I mean? Back in the day, they were denying that tobacco was bad for you, you know what I mean? And now we're having a similar thing with sugar. And so, like you talk about, what are we being told? You look at the pyramid of what we should be eating. Cow's milk is still on there and all these, forms of dairy and bread and, but how is our bread being made? And so it's just a whole systemic issue. But what I will say is a solution that we can provide already is I think somebody might have already mentioned it, is where we spend our dollars. You know what I mean? Is like, how can we make an immediate impact? Stop buying, overly processed food that is really bad for us. Stop, buying clothes that are made, unsustainably in other countries. You know what I mean? It's kind of like a conversation of putting also your money where your mouth is, and how can you, start to, be the change you wish to see, and as we each individually become accountable for our own behavior, I think that we can truly start to shift this whole thing. But it does start with, putting down our labels and titles and just, unifying and then coming into a common place and have a real discussion, and honestly, and then the key is applying compassion during that discussion, because it's very easy to become heated and start, well, you did this, and then he and she, and it's just like, whoa, let's take a breath. You know what I mean? Like, I understand that it's an emotionally, involved topic, but at the same time, that's not going to get you anywhere. And so really, again, being the change you wish to see, practicing compassion, practicing, love and care towards your neighbor, and hopefully working together to find solutions to all of these things.
Jean, thank you for bringing that up. I'm going to get to you, Casilda, in a second. Adam, that brings up a really funny thing that you and I, we've talked about this, is like, what if like politicians were required to like go through some sort of like mindfulness training or like Vipassana, like a 10-day silent retreat? Like, what if they had to also practice ethics and morality as a part of being decision makers and leaders in our communities making decisions? And,
Yeah.
I think, right, Paul, would you be good with the Vipassana with that?
Well,
We started to
let's
talk
just
about
say that politicians do have to practice ethics and morals. We have, and if you're caught being unethical at most levels, maybe not the president, but at most levels, you're removed from your office. So lots of politicians go to jail, a few too many in my jurisdiction. So we're not exactly an unregulated industry. And I think there's a big difference between when you say that hospitals are self-regulated. I don't think that's actually true. They're pretty heavily regulated. You also have industries that are peer regulated. So as a lawyer, I'm accountable to the Bar Association. That doesn't mean I'm unregulated, but it means I'm accountable to lawyers. In the District of Columbia, and Jay, I don't know how it works where you are, but cosmetology, barbershops, things like that, they're actually self-regulated by a panel we call it the cosmetology board, and there may be other things. So if you get a license, it's other, and I'm throwing out words like barbers, probably inartfully, so forgive me, but it's other people in the industry that do the licensing, make the tests, set the standards. I, as a politician, don't do that. We work in the areas, we should stick to the areas that we have expertise in. So peer review, self-review, self-regulation is very different from self-regulation. I just don't think the idea that somehow we pay more for COVID deaths. I don't even think we pay hospitals for deaths, by the way. I think we pay them to treat people, and that when somebody dies, that's generally not a good business model for the hospital. But I'm trying to, I really want to know if there's data behind that, because it's not how I understand it. We reimburse hospitals for treatment when insurance doesn't do that. But most people, we now provide more insurance, at least than we used to, through the Affordable Care Act. But I don't know that there's a premium for, we have a different rate if you're paying a ventilator or an ICU nurse gets paid differently. So if there's data behind that, I'd like to see it. And Jay, I think I said from the beginning, if the government forces your business to close, you should be compensated in some other way. To the extent that we haven't been doing that, we should be. If you lose your job because of that, we have something called unemployment insurance. It's been inadequate. We've supplemented it. We have some real problems with particular institutions of the government. The United States Senate, where is the focus of my service, is a uniquely flawed institution. 51% of the senators represent only 18% of the people. So it has a lot of problems, but.
Senator, can we get Casilda in here? Casilda, you had your hand raised?
Yes, but I think it's important to get Jim's input on that too, but I'll try to keep this quick. There was a couple of comments, I mean, just to loop back with what Gian said, how can we have more compassion in the way we're handling this? And just adding to that, I think we use marketing, given that I am a former marketing executive. Marketing is being used can be either used for low frequency or high frequency initiatives. And what we tend to see is a lot of low frequency things being marketed and heavily marketed specifically to certain ethnic groups, because race came up as Black people having poorer eating habits. And I'm saying that none of that is an accident. This is being socially engineered, and it's been socially engineered for a long time. And there is data behind it. I don't have it on hand right now, but there is data behind it. And so this is something that we need to look at as community of compassionate leaders that are stepping up to the plate and saying, if we truly care and are compassionate towards one another, what's being marketed and how to hold some of these companies accountable. Like, so I also lived in Denmark when I was, one of my corporate gigs was in Denmark. And they actually put a heavy tax on high cholesterol food. And that was back in 2012 already. They put a high tax rate on alcohol, on red meat, on anything that is not healthy for you. And junk food, all of it, chips, potato chips, all of these things got heavily taxed. So that naturally started, and then the organic food and healthier food, the prices dropped, and it was done in tandem together. So, and this is me living there. This is not anecdotal, lived experience. So what I'd like to have greater awareness around is, strategic marketing, strategic planning around health, nutrition, wellness can go a long way, and holding some of these companies like McDonald's and Popeyes and just that are infiltrated and like just huge in highly poorer communities, regardless of race. And yes, a higher percentage of that could be Black people, given historically what's been happening in the United States to Black people and the systemic disenfranchisement. However, so we need to have a much broader conversation around this.
Casilda, on that note, there's the hospital near my home, which is in Oakland. The hospital has a McDonald's in it. Right.
Oh,
and
wow.
just to think about it, and the patients ask for it, and the kids in the pediatric ICU ask for the McDonald's, right? Because it's there. Anyways, that being said,
is that because they don't have like really delicious, yummy alternatives?
No.
Right?
So that's the ICU, mind you, right? So really quick, so let's go to Jim, right? Jim had a rebuttal.
Yeah. Not really rebuttal, but I think we're looking at this as a collective group kind of wrong. The senator is actually part of self-governing, aren't you, Senator? We elected you. I'm not in your district, but we elect senators to help us govern. And that is self-government. That's what we're all about. We don't have a dictatorship. We don't have a king. We have self-governing.
So far, no. Ask me tomorrow, but yeah.
Yeah, ask me tomorrow. Understandable, Senator. But I did a stint with Latham and Watkins, so I know the Bar Association is run by lawyers. So you can't tell me we're not self-governing. But so we have a lot of self-governing. The Hospital Administration Association, the Hospital Association is all owned by hospitals. We developed our own program to self-govern ourselves. they became a regulatory because we were the only ones that had the knowledge. So the government said it was regulatory. If you look at different industries didn't have regulations, and the government came in and provided regulations for them. But on a reality point right now, I think we're talking about, we're a pretty big nation now, and we're pretty smart. I mean, I live in a community that has 100,000 students, which is phenomenal. You know, that's university wise. We need to have a look at how we as a people are self-governing ourselves a little more and give us more freedom to self-govern. You know, and I think we're not giving enough credit to individuals to make choices. If I want to eat bad food and I just happen to love Oreos and they're terrible for me, that's my choice. Now, does that impact society? If they are providing my health care for free, then it does. If I'm paying for my health care, then it doesn't. So there's a lot of give and take. We have to look at the system. And so those are personal freedoms. But I think as a business owner and see the struggle of businesses, I think they have the capabilities of self-governing whether they can be open or not, if they're going to be able to meet these needs, and they know their needs by region. I mean, your region is a lot different than California's region. You know, your weather's inclined to the cold, people's immunity, et cetera, is different than, let's say, Southern California. That's a lot different than Alaska, or a lot different than Hawaii, a lot different than Minnesota, everybody, or Texas. You know, they're going to have different weather, different people, different economy. But so to allow them to self-govern and saying, here is the blanket for everybody, doesn't work very well.
Yes.
So that's just kind of,
Jay?
Yeah, the two nuggets I just want to pull out of that is, Jim, I think I agree with the scale sensitive. Like what works for big systems doesn't necessarily work for small systems, right? What works in DC doesn't work in rural North Dakota, per se. And then also locally relevant, because just because Wall Street is shutting down doesn't mean we should shut down every main street. And I am very supportive of local strong governance and strong regulation through collaboration and proper communication.
So now, that being, oh, go ahead, Jay, go.
And then just one other thing I wanted to add is I will personally commit to going back and to all the facts that I cited and provide kind of a commentary or references at the end. And if there was any mistake in there, happy to resend that.
Yeah, and thank you. And I, you know, as we're coming closer to close, Adam, right? I figured we should do a quick exercise, right? Because we gotta create some sort of playful aspect of this. And here's a play. My hope is that all of you pretend you are taking a magic mushroom or or some sort of meditation to unlock your consciousness or whatever it is, and pretend or otherwise experience the opportunity that you have, that maybe whoever the next leader is of our country, and when they come in, whatever's going on, let's say you have a conversation, you have a moment where the whole public will listen to you, or the leaders will listen to you. And we have a leader right here. So even Senator Strauss, you get to practice this and having an opportunity to have an open mind with the people who are making decisions in even a bigger scale. What would you say to them? How should we proceed? The meditation is like this. What do we do? Like, what is the best route in your opinion, with your perspective? What is something that we should do? So, you know, a thought experiment, if you want to say, if like, what is the best direction for us to go? And from your perspective, especially being teachers and restaurant owners and everything. So does anybody want to take a first shot on that? Do you need a meditation? Do you need a meditation first? You want me to play the flute? Okay, hit you too. Who wants a shot at that?
yeah, I'd take a shot at it.
Okay.
I would love to have an opportunity from my perspective right now is to say, we have lots of things in place that aren't utilized. We're the Small Business Development Center. We're part of the SBA. During all of COVID, we never received any more funding, any more hours. And our job is, of course, wait a minute, to generate small businesses and help them succeed. And so it always amazes me that our government has lots of things in place, but they don't utilize what they have. And I think that's the one thing I would want to say to a governor, to the government, say, wait a minute, we have phenomenal things in place that we built. Basically, the government said, here's a good idea. We implemented it, it became a good idea, and we just don't use it anymore. We don't use the schools as well as we could. We don't utilize systems to be able to help people that exist. And that's a shame. We come up with some new program, some new group of governing to govern us, and says, we have lots of stuff in place. Let's use it more effectively. That's what I would love to sit down with somebody and, the new leaders of the nation.
Excellent. Thank you, Jim.
Great. That was great.
Who's next? Who wants to jump in?
I'm going to jump in because I'm going to have to leave actually. But I think, I think this is a huge learning experience for everybody. And at this point, we're having to react to something we weren't prepared for it. But I think going forward, I do think just the way that we receive our information is one of the major issues for just the divide in our country and a lot of the problems. And I think, I don't know how it can be solved, but more transparency and more fact checking and one more reliable source of getting our information is really needed.
Thank you.
And I don't know how that is going to be achieved, but that's what we need.
Thank you, Jessica. I've heard those magic mushrooms are pretty powerful and being more perceptive, opening up perspectives. But Jessica, thank you so much also for the work you do. Continue. We hope you continue to thrive and thrive in that space to be able to offer more service and more healthcare to the people in your community.
Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody. I really enjoyed participating with everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night. Be well. Anybody else? John, yes. Casilda, you want to go for it? Or?
Sure. I think we're really at a point where the heart-mind coherence is really being called out because I think this is where we're seeing higher numbers of depression because people in isolation, because I think looping all the way around, it's about lockdowns and whether we should lock down or not and what it takes to not be in lockdown or what, and it's been such a great discussion around all the things that we need to consider. And we just need to keep remembering that, we need immediate solutions within, in the next 2 to 4 week solutions, and then midterm planning, what's then in the 6 month, 3 to 6 month, 3 to 9 month range, and then and beyond. So I think we would be really helpful if we get really strategic. And this is probably my corporate background. I'm used to thinking that way. Like, what do we need to do right now? To make sure that it's not just COVID patients, but the greater wellness of community that's being considered and what does it take to get there? And then what are our midterm solutions? And then long-term about within a year even, which is not that long, but 1 to 2 years, what are systemic changes? So it doesn't become one administration passing the buck to another administration, which has been going on for far too long, and the American people deserve more. And so for me, I have so much compassion for humanity. I have been working in personal transformational leadership myself. And this is a call for citizens, every citizen to step up and demand more of their government and accountability, because there is blanket decisions being made that's affecting so many people. And this is generational PTSD as well. And so we haven't discussed PTSD and the long-term effects of that yet. And so this is some things that we as a community, as compassionate leaders, I would love for us to really bring that, because having known and worked with people who are suffering from PTSD, people don't realize what's happening and what's happened right now. There's much greater consequences that will affect our community for multiple generations. The psychological warfare that's happening to so many of us. And this is not something like, I don't want to get into petty debates about just not that deaths are not that are okay, but the conversation is much bigger than that. Thank you.
And it's amazing, Adam, that a Canadian is like wanting Americans, like wanting America. Like, that's how awesome Canadians are. By the way, I'm Canadian and American too, so that's why. Canadians rock. Okay, who's next? Thank you, Casilda. Who wants to volunteer? All right, Tanicia.
I kind of want to jump on what Casilda said she talked a lot about having a framework about sort of like short-term and long-term goals. But I also think that what should also be focused on is like the manpower, the people who are going to carry that out. So just saying that we have these resources and then not sort of, sort of assigning, who is going to do what and when leads to breakdown of the system. And so, and when you have that disagreement or you don't have that sort of like plan, then that causes further division. We have further division within our own communities that are still suffering, psychologically because of this.
I'm not, I don't think I disagree with you, because what I meant when I say short-term, like immediate, short-term, midterm, long-term, that doesn't negate responsibility and the resource management alongside. Usually when I worked on strategic initiatives, the resource management part and the accountability part of who's going to execute is very much part of the plan. So sorry if I was not clear with that.
And
Thank
so
you.
mind you, this exercise is more about what is the vision that would work the best from your perspective. So there is nothing can go wrong with anybody is saying in this. There's no wrong in this exercise. Okay, so Casilda, you have your perspective, and Tanicia, you have your perspective, and we want to really appreciate and hold space for your perspective as a teacher too. Like, what is the best path?
Right. I mean, and from, my domain and everything, I'm not seeing that responsibility. I'm not seeing that follow through. And so we've got this mandate that's sort of thrust upon us in terms of like how we are going to open schools but with no sort of directive on who's responsible for what in terms of like everything down to who's responsible for doing the cleaning of schools or tracking illness within family units. And I apologize if this seems like I'm rambling. I'm really nervous. This is very much outside of my domain, y'all.
What, Tanicia?
My primary audience are like 11 to 13-year-olds, y'all.
Well, you're talking to me in Indy, so you're not that far off.
So I've been very, very nervous throughout the whole thing. But yeah, I mean, I just am not seeing it in terms of like, how do we meet the needs of our students of various ability levels and socioeconomic. We're just not seeing that. And as a result, I do see the schism between teachers and educational admin, as well as the parent community, on how we're going to deal with what's best for our children. And throughout this whole discussion, I kind of feel like that was a little bit lost because it wasn't really discussed. And they absolutely are suffering with depression. We've got teen suicide was already and I see it every day how it affects my babies. And so all I want to do is to just work with the community to do what's best for the kiddos.
Yay.
Just a quick comment on that. I think I think you're absolutely right. What seems to be a lot of times is a hierarchical top down, which it doesn't always filter to what's the execution strategy and what's the workload on the people who have to execute this. So really good point, great point. What we need to consider then is how do we get to a more collaborative model versus a hierarchical model?
Right.
That's sort of my solution to that.
I want to respect everybody's time, Casilda. So can we quickly move through, give everybody a minute? So Senator, can we end with you? Is that good?
Sure. I do have to step away afterwards to attend a public safety briefing, but thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. For those of you with very reasonable concerns about the state of our government, let's be frank, for the last a couple of years, you haven't exactly been catching us at our best. And that's unfortunate. I think we're going to be turning a corner. And the failed leadership that has taken this horrible thing and aggravated it will hopefully get a lot better. Obviously, nobody is pro-lockdown for the sake of being locked down. It supports a higher goal of saving human lives, which is government's first and foremost protection. But hopefully, the best protection against government malfeasance is an informed citizenry, but an informed citizenry has the responsibility to educate themselves with real information and real facts. And I expect that we can begin to restore some balance to that soon. So thank you very much for having me. I've enjoyed being with you. It was a dark day for our democracy, but I enjoyed sharing this time with all of you.
Well, thank
and
you.
Indy, the District of Columbia did vote just to legalize mushrooms. By the way, I know that's so that law hasn't taken effect yet, but we look forward, when it's safe, to having you in the District of Columbia.
Can we do a mushroom?
I'll be there too.
Can we do a mushroom ceremony with you?
I can lead the ceremony too with Indy.
No, I think we got
Wait,
everybody.
Adam,
I think we got
Adam?
everybody we need.
Senator Paul. I want to do mushrooms with Senator Paul.
Me too.
Well, I as I said, I'm called away right now, and
No, but it's happening. It's on. It's
This will
legal.
help
You're
with the
not gonna get in
trauma. This will
trouble.
help.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good
Okay,
night.
can we
Be
just
safe.
get a quick note from our last panelist, Gian Paolo? Can we do that, and then we'll go over to Christina and we'll wrap up.
All right. Go ahead, John.
For me, I mean, I think one of the first things that needs to be done is also, the senator mentioned, staying informed. We all need to stay informed. There should be a clear channel of solid factual information coming our way. It should be established, I would assume, by leadership, or anyone really can take the leadership and establish an actual, it shouldn't be CNN is saying one thing and Fox News is saying the complete opposite thing. And it's like, depending on which channel you just so happen to watch, that's your reality. We've talked about marketing, things being strategically marketed to us. You know what I mean? Depending on what we're doing on social media, that's the world that we live in. So we're all in these detached little bubbles and there's no unity. But as far as what can be done immediately, I would provide states that are, supposedly having their hospital systems at capacity, and that, there's a fear of, if I get COVID, I might not fit in the hospital and I could die. You know what I mean? I would provide the infrastructure so that if that's an actual fact that hospitals are, at risk of being at capacity, so they have to turn people away, I would have it so that there's 10 hospitals ready to go. You know what I mean? Just ready to take people in. So that way, at least we can start to manage the fear, because something being there and then being afraid of something that you don't know is there are two very different things, So really doing a better job of managing the fear of this whole thing, and, really paying attention to factual based things. You know what I mean? Are these hospitals at capacity? If so, let's put up a tent and get ready for, the extra, and let's make sure that everybody is being informed truly, and not, being told a story of what's potentially going on, because that's where the division happens, is when we start to hear different bits of information. It's like, well, I heard this, well, I heard that. Of course, we're going to be divided. And if we're divided, there's no unifying, and there's no solution without unity. So that's the most important thing.
Thank you, John. And really quickly, I want to, Jay, can you pop in something really quickly?
Yeah, hold me to 90 seconds, please. I just want to contribute to this incredible emerging vision where, Tanicia, yes, children education, and that's the front line. Like, if we screw up the next generation, humanity's over, right? Exactly. And so, and strategic planning, we need Benjamin Life is a man that I've gotten to know a lot better in the last couple of days, who has launched a project called Infinite Games.
Infinite Games?
Where we literally come together. It's called Infinite Games. And we can provide a link to it at the end of this, where we can literally come together, agree to try, experiment, do evidence-based social impact endeavors, and be, data-driven about it in collaborating and working together. And he's just an inspiring leader that I want to support and get behind. And so, in conclusion, to put my money where my mouth is, I would like to commit $1,000 into an infinite game managed by, Benjamin Life and his Infinite Games in support of doing this. Furthermore, I would like to say that, can we get the WeDeepen community to help with that? Can we create a game and a contest by which if we succeed in solving this COVID problem through regulation, through certification, whatever the case may be, who wins at the best proposal? Let's do our own TED Talk. Let's do our own, pitch event to determine what's the best course of action. And I'm putting in $1,000. I invite each of you to put in what you can, and let's talk about let's actually make some solutions happen.
Awesome. Thank you, Jay. Christina, do you want to hop on here? Where are you?
I'm right here. Can you guys all hear me?
We can hear. Wait, are you you're floating in the universe?
No, I'm not floating in the universe. I'm here. Let me see. There we go. I'm here with you all. Hi, everyone. Thank you for this evening. Is there anyone else who has anything dire to say before I do close this up? And
I'll say one thing.
Yeah.
It just popped into me before. I'm like, if there's 3 words that, have echoed in my experience, through training people and, in large scale companies and whatnot, is hospitality, accountability, ownership. And I added love recently to my training. So, hospitality, just being kinder human beings to everybody. You know what I mean? Accountability, let's uphold accountability for everything. Ownership, people take ownership over their own lives and over their own well-being. And then love, man, just spread joy, spread love, and just, vibrate at the frequency of love.
You lost me at the love part, because I don't know what the heck that is. I don't know what that is.
I was down until that whole love nonsense, malarkey shenanigans.
Lost me.
Well,
I love y'all.
I love you all. Amazing. If you guys could just stick around for 3 more minutes and I'll close us out. Indy and Adam, thank you guys for facilitating this experience, guiding and moderating. Fantastic job of coming into this. Indy and Adam, as the new year was coming and we were choosing the topic for Mind Sports, I believe this is our 6th one. I was pushing, let's go, vegan versus meat eaters, and they wanted to do the lockdown. They wanted to talk opening and closing, and they kept pushing forward. And so we went with it, and I'm glad we did. So thank you guys, and thank you Team WeDeepen. Team WeDeepen is, we have all the butterflies on our screen. So thank you Team WeDeepen for making this happen this evening. We do have some upcoming experiences to tell you about. WeDeepen is a network. We're community first. And then we are expressed through a network of interactive experiences and entertainment for people who want healthy relationships. If you're in this space, I imagine you want healthy relationships in your life of all kinds. This coming weekend, Sunday morning, if you happen to be single and you love to practice dating, we're going to do an authentic dating relating experience. It's 2 hours. We did it for the first time in December. People love it.
Mind you, wait, hold on, Christina. I got to interrupt you. I got to be like, Christina, this whole concept was actually a next level way for relationships to start. Especially, I think you could start it as a dating, right?
It did. Yeah. My fascination is dating, because I think, as we all know, when we talk about domestic violence and we talk about the things that are happening in the homes, it starts with, we all came from procreation. I want to say we all came from love, but
I don't know about Adam.
Man and woman. So, and not to say that, but like all types of relationships, any type of, so even this weekend, if you want to come to Hum Hum Dating, it doesn't matter your sexual orientation. It's a place to come practice, be in community, go deeper. It's the Hum Hum Conscious Dating Salon, 10 a.m. on Pacific Standard Time or 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sunday. On Monday is Kosh Codes. We're bringing back Kosh Codes. Kosh Codes was an in-person experience in Los Angeles, and now we're bringing it into the online space on Monday, with the first one being on 1/11. Kosh Codes is a group Akashic record reading.
What?
Danielle channels. She opens the Kosh Codes. If you've ever listened to Abraham Hicks, it's like an Abraham Hicks experience. You can come and ask all types of questions from what's my life purpose to what should I be doing at work? When am I going to meet him? And you'll receive the clarity through reflections and through other people's questions. It will actually provide you clarity.
I thought he was going to give us cash. I was like, sign me up. I'm going to cash. Give me some cash codes.
Yeah.
And then one other experience I'll tell you about too is next Wednesday at this time is Omega Male. Omega Male is a men's group. We do men's work and women can come too. So that is next Wednesday. It's Omega Male. Daniel McKenzie guides that experience. And then finally, at the end of this month, January 30th is the 8th annual Feminine Weapon Day. We battle the ills of the world through love. And this event, again, it's 8 years. Through the years, we've raised over $60,000 for children of abuse, extreme poverty, and human trafficking. This year, our theme is facing the shadows. We are going to go on a journey, starting with shadow work and into the darkness. Because I think, you know, looking back at what I was so happy about in 2020 is that people started talking about human trafficking and sex trafficking, and everyone wanted to hashtag save the children again. And I loved it. I was like, yes, let's go there. And in 2019, a friend was at one of the big fancy galas with a bunch of wealthy people raising money, because throughout the years, we've always raised funds for the survivors. And how do we provide them with healing programs? But when we ask the question, what are we going to do about the actual problem? There's usually blank stares in the room. And what was said at this gala was that we don't think that it's ever going to change because people aren't willing to look at the darkness. It's too dark. You don't want to see it. You don't want to look at it. So you turn a blind eye. So we're going to do it together as a collective, and we're going to go through the shadow and we're going to go into the darkness. We're going to see it together. So it doesn't have to be as scary. And then we're going to arc our way throughout the day into, some alternative healing solutions or systems that we can actualize, and then into hearing about a project. So this Feminine Weapon Day, there's a cultural arts center in Roswell, New Jersey. It's in Newark, New Jersey. It's one of the most poverty-stricken areas in the United States. And we have been given access to a library for $1. Oh, and then we need funding now to outfit, to develop that community center for the children in that neighborhood to have a safe space to gather and learn. And we're going to provide all of the mechanics through Arte More. It's a 501(c)(3). And then we're also in partnership with the Independent National Union. And so we're going to hear about that organization on January 30th, Feminine Weapon Day 2. The Independent National Union is developing an engine to provide an alternative to our two-party system. So we're getting behind, it's not a political party, it's a union that's supporting all independents, and also even asking politicians to denounce their affiliation with either Democrats or Republicans and go independent, so we can bring our world back to us and in the hands of us. And I think that's one of the things that we've learned this year, is that it's time for some new leadership and it's time for change. So that's January 30th. It's either going to be on Clubhouse or AirMeet. We're still figuring it out, but stay tuned, and you can already see that on WeDeepen.com.
Hey, Adam, are we starting the party or what? The party?
Yeah. I mean, it's a party for people who like to party.
Just like a party. So if you guys want to join,
The Independent National Union will support the party.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
And then last, two more points, quick points, is that we are now in Clubhouse every day at 4 p.m. We have a WeDeepen daily that you can come in and tune in with us and gather with us on Clubhouse. If you haven't got there yet, please do find me there. Christina Weber at WeDeepen. So come and hang out with us on a daily basis. After this experience, you're going to get a survey. It's going to come out soon. Please take a moment to complete the survey. Tell us about your experience here today. We want to improve. We want to know what you liked. We want to know what you disliked. So take a moment. It'll take you about 4 minutes to complete that survey, and it'll be super helpful for us. lastly, the next Mind Sports is February 3rd. Yes, we'll be back together February 3rd. Maybe we do veganism versus meat eaters at that time, or maybe it's astrology versus science. We've gotten asked to debate those two things too.
Yes.
Who knows? But I appreciate you all for coming out and join us in the WhatsApp group. Join us on Facebook. Join us in Clubhouse, and we'll see you at an experience soon. And we can continue to go deeper.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Yo, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please make sure you take care of yourselves. Have a good night's sleep.
Sleep well.